All right, Blake and Brandy, we got a team that we got to talk about where there is a Reviville, so to speak, underway, and that is the Louisville Cardinals. This week on Tuesday, they absolutely thrashed a quality SMU team, and they've ripped off, I believe, 9 games in a row now. Pat Kelsey, he's got 15 wins for a Louisville program that the past 2 years combined for 12. So he has completely came in there and done a hell of a job with that program. A lot of National Coach of the Year talk for him this week on social media and all kinds of platforms. And Blake, it's pretty warranted right now because PK, he's cooking there in the Ville.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hinted towards it, like the National Coach of the Year talks right now. This guy's completely revolutionized this program. He's taken it back to the old days, like under Patino. They're dominating against teams that they should be, and they're competing against teams like Duke that they probably shouldn't have been. And then, like, one really cool stat that I saw from Evan Maya, he's a big, like, analytical dude. He ended up like using some analytical data, and he found out that Louisville is actually the most improved team in the country within the past like 30 days. So for a team that's like has battled a couple season-ending injuries mid-season, and then they also had a couple guys out for the entire season preseason, it's phenomenal work that Kelsey's put together. And sitting here on January 24th, if I had to pick a National Coach of the Year winner right now, I'd probably have to go with Pat Kelsey just because of how he's handled things. He's like that offense is beautiful right now. Like Rain Smith putting up 10 threes against a Power 5 ACC SMU team that has a pulse this year. Like that's unreal. Chucky Hepburn with like it might have been like 16 assists I think against SMU. Like that's just unheard of, really. In the same game too, like he's letting these guys play comfortably. They're all buying into what Pat Kelsey's like giving out to those players, and it's just a cool thing to see, honestly.
Yeah, and another thing that really sticks out to me, Brandy, when I look at their season overall at this point, back towards the end of November on the 29th, they lost to Oklahoma, and that was the start of a 3-game losing stretch where they lost 4 out of 5. They went down to Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Duke, and then Kentucky. Obviously, quality teams to be going down to, but it looked like things may have been going off the tracks there. They had the injuries come up, and just a lot of adversity hit that program, and for them to respond the way they have, not losing since that Kentucky game at Rupp Arena, where they really competed the whole time against a team that you could argue is a Final Four quality team. It's just really cool to see what Pat Kelsey's been able to do in a season that really nobody's expected, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you guys have said, especially being able to overcome that 3-game losing streak on top of the injuries, because that's around when they lost one of their best offensive players, and to still have the offense kind of churning how it is right now. And they're about to be in the thick of ACC play, or are in the thick of ACC play, and it's a pretty weak league. They're set up for a really great seed line in the tournament. And like both of the stats that you threw out there for Chucky and Rain, those both set school records in those games.
Mm-hmm.
So most assists in a game and most made threes in a game, which is so impressive. And Louisville is doing this too with the number 9 strength of schedule in the country. So it's not like they're just out there winning games now in a row and they haven't really played anybody. No, they have a top 10 schedule in the country right now. So it's been really impressive. And honestly, their defense isn't all that bad either. They have a top 50 defense per Ken Palm. And I think that's really what helped keep them in that game against Kentucky for most of the game. So yeah, it's been exciting to see, and I definitely think he's top 3 right now for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even as a Kentucky fan, like the last couple of years, just watching them be so down bad as a program, it was really just not even fun, like seeing your worst rival like that. I mean, college basketball is better when Louisville and Kentucky are good, and that can go for a lot of schools across the country as too that have been underwhelming. But looking at the ACC standings, they're sitting there right now, tied for second with Clemson. Duke obviously stands alone with the undefeated conference record, but then you go throughout the rest of the league. Wake Forest is behind them at 7-1, and then there's a drop off to SMU at 5-3. So, barring any unforeseen setbacks, it's looking like a top 4, top 3 type of standing for Pat Kelsey in the ACC. And Blake, I think if you told that to a Louisville fan, at the start of the season, they would be more than happy with that because I don't think they would have ever imagined they'd see themselves up there at the top of the ACC with Duke.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, most Louisville fans, I'm sure they were like happy to see a guy coming in that's had somewhat of success over at College of Charleston, but I don't think anybody could have imagined something like this happening. It really is remarkable to see what he's done with injury plagued team, coming into a situation that looked almost unbearable, and then to be able to flip it around in like a 4 month, 5 month span is pretty unbelievable to see.
Yeah, no, and I mean, he came in there and he inherited a dumpster fire, like I said, rebuilt it all from the portal, and I mean, that's really hard to do. Like your average coach just can't go in there and piece together that quality of a roster on that short of a notice. And this is looking like a team that's headed for a quality seed, as Brandy mentioned, and looking like they've got some potential in the tournament. And we're obviously getting towards the season where bracketology is starting to take the forefront of college basketball. So where do we think, it's obviously still early. We're heading into February, but March is going to be here before we know it. So what do we think, Brandy, about Louisville's possible seed line, where we might see them at, and what's kind of the expectation with this group, barring like anything unforeseen, like an injury or just an absolute collapse? But I don't think I see the collapse coming. I think that they might cruise through the rest of their schedule looking at the teams they got to play.
Yeah, I think just expectations for the rest of the season are to go basically undefeated, maybe have a loss or two now. They don't play Duke, and the ACC in general is just really bad. They've already played UNC. Really, their hardest test is going to be at home against Pitt the first weekend of March. So I think they have a ton of winnable games left on their schedule, and I'd be surprised if they lost more than two of them. For a seed line, I definitely kind of am expecting them on that 4 or 5 seed line. Maybe higher than that, but yeah, I think that's around where I have them, is around a 4 or 5 seed is what I would
Yeah.
assume.
I kind of, if they would have some more quality opponents ahead, like if the ACC were better than this year, which is the worst it's been in a while, I think they could make a push for maybe a 3 seed or even a 2. But just with the lack of a strength of schedule remaining, I mean, obviously they had a tough non-conference and started conference play. They had some tests. I think 4 might be the cap on their potential seed line wise. Blake, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. Like you guys said, the ACC is really weak this year, so it's kind of hard for them to like overcome the like how the SEC is super tough this year. So they're gonna have a crap ton of teams. Big Ten, even they're having like a really good season overall as a conference. So it's kind of hard for a team like Louisville to be able to sneak in like the 3, 4 range. So yeah.
I will say, whatever seed they get, I definitely think that second weekend potential is all over this team. I think they'd be a safe pick to get out of the first couple of rounds, and I don't know if you all agree with me about that, but I think with this season, Sweet 16 is a reasonable expectation. I'd say if you're a Louisville fan, you got to be happy with that. Yeah, you
Hey,
got your
look,
hand up, Blake.
yeah.
What's up?
Is it crazy to say that I think they're going to be a Final Four team? Like, and
Wow.
since like 2013, there's been, I think, yeah, since 2013, there's been at least one dark horse team to make the Final Four. And honestly, I could see the trend continuing this year with how hectic and pretty like asinine college basketball's been this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I don't want to say that I'd rule it out. I'm not sure if they have quite the quality top to bottom maybe to make a Final Four run, but the NCAA tournament, I mean, it all comes down to matchups and who's playing their best basketball at the right time. So if Louisville comes into the tournament flaming hot, like I mean, we saw a school last year, they finished the regular season much worse, but in the ACC, you saw NC State. They got hot at the right time and they found themselves all the way to the Final Four. So I think Sweet 16's the safe bet. Brandy, you think this team might have Final Four potential? Blake's going all in. He's pushing those chips all the way, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
I mean,
mean, I need a bracket in front of me first before I could say
Yeah.
that, but I think
Mhm.
Final Four is probably their ceiling. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if they made it just because they have the offense And when that offense is clicking, I don't know what defense is going to be able to stop them. So I could definitely see it happening. But I think that's probably where their ceiling's at. Um, and they don't really play like a good enough defense the rest of the year for me to really be like, okay, they're going to get tested. So if they match up against a team with a strong defense in the tournament, I'd kind of be a little worried about that. But yeah, I could see it. There's always one team out there that just surprises everybody. So
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, if Rain Smith's playing the way that he did against SMU, I mean, if they get hot, I could see them cooking themselves a Final Four bid. It's very matchup dependent. I don't want to go too far on them yet, but I mean, even a Sweet 16, I think, is a massive success for them. But they've got the players on that squad to do it. Terrence Edwards Jr., and then you got Chucky Hepburn, obviously, Rain Smith, like I mentioned. Those guys are bucket getters, and those are the type of guys you want to have on your squad in March. But Blake, since you're all in on the U of L to the Final Four hype, I'll just go ahead and let you say it right now. Are you sharpieing in Pat Kelsey for Coach of the Year? I know we hinted at it. Are you going to just go ahead and straight up just put it in writing today?
Probably not. Just because of the simple fact, like this morning, I tweeted out because Field of 68 had tweeted something about like the top 10 candidates, and I had 1A Kelsey, 1B, I think it was Bruce Pearl, 1C Pope. Like you literally can't go wrong this year. And then you add in somebody like Otzelberger from Iowa State, Todd Golden from Florida. Like there's really like limitless options this year, and you really can't go wrong with anybody.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this season plays out for them because, like we said, they've got a manageable ACC schedule the rest of the way, but they've done a hell of a job there so far. Pat Kelsey, I think it's safe to say that he was definitely the right hire if you're a Louisville fan looking back on this. And I have a feeling that when it comes to March, we're going to be looking at them as, like you said, Blake, possibly a dark horse. And, you never know what can happen in March. I saw a bracketology thing, actually, before we put a bow on this subject. It had Kentucky and Louisville possibly meeting in the round of 32 for a Sweet 16 spot. And I mean, can you imagine the scenes for something like that? That talk about bringing the rivalry back. That'd be one hell of a way to do it. And we saw the quality basketball that was played in the regular season. So I definitely wouldn't be opposed to seeing that. But long way to go. Obviously, we're going to keep our eyes on Louisville. But kudos to Pat Kelsey. He's done a great job so far.